I met him at the Kobara Club for the first time. I thought he was handsome. We made love, and then I saw him again a few weeks later. Not an assignation, an accident.
Please finish up.
Vale, muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Egunon, eta ongi etorri aurtengo Donostiako zinemaldiko prentsaurreko berrira. Gaurko prentsaurrekoan Marlowe filma izango dugu. Hola, bienvenidos.
Hi and welcome everyone. We have the pleasure today to introduce the closing film, Marlowe.
If you want, you can just put your headphones on and then you will hear the translation. Para presentar la película,
to present the film we have with us, and I'm going to introduce you to of how they're sitting down here. Patrick Muldoon, who's the producer, Alan Moloney, producer, Liam Neeson, actor, Neil Jordan, the director, DIANE KRUGER, actress, Gary Levinson, producer, and Patrick HIBLER, producer. And in order to commence, I have a question. Yes, Mr. Neeson, if he could put his headphones on. So okay, I hope everyone can hear the translation. Yep, here we go. So I'll take your questions in a moment, but I have a question as regards what was the production process for the film. I see John Bumville's from the blonde with black legs who awakened or brought Marlowe back. And I was asking, what was the process vis-a-vis creation and the production of the film? Because I remember when John Bumville's the blonde with black eyes, who brought back Raymond Chandler's Marlowe, I think it was 2014, and I'm very interested in what was the process of getting the rights and to make this film at this time. I'm not too sure whether Neil and the producer perhaps could say something along these lines.
I didn't hear that. Okay.
But is this translation working?
No.
So basically,
it's okay. Don't worry. I understand the question.
Okay.
Look, the book was written by John Banville, who's a very dear friend of mine, and Alan bought the rights. Alan Moloney bought the rights to the book, and we had done. How many movies have we done together?
we've done
two.
Two.
Just two.
And then 2.5, we produced Intermission together.
That's right. No, and I did that Becca thing for you, didn't I?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Which I
4.
love doing. 4.
3.5.
3.5. We had done 3.5 movies together. And William Monaghan wrote this rather wonderful script, and Alan asked me to get involved, and Liam was attached, weren't you, by then? Yeah?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And I felt there was not enough complexity in the plot, so I asked, could I have a go at the script, and they kindly said yes, and we ended up with the movie we have, basically. That's it.
Okay, no sé si también.
I'm not too sure whether any of the producers would like to talk about how you jumped on board into the project.
You're asking me?
The producers.
So at the time, I had spoken to John about the rights to the book. I introduced it to Gary Levinson. In fact, Gary and I had been talking to John about a completely different project, and the way these things often do, kind of accidentally, we all ended up in the same room at the same time. And John had written this book, but it hadn't yet been published, and so we sort of took it from there, and we decided at that point to develop it ourselves. So we put a group together to fund the development process, and that gave us a script. And so that then went on a little merry journey of its own, as these things can often do. And then Neil and I got to talking, and obviously, you know, I think you'll know from Neil's work that clearly this sort of noir genre is something that certainly I thought might appeal, gave him the script, and it did. And so then Gary, you might want to explain how we were introduced to Patrick and Patrick.
Sure. I think initially when Alan pitched the idea of getting involved, I think for anybody that's anywhere near the film business, when you hear Philip Marlowe, your knees weaken, and I think it's, you know, which is why it's called Marlowe, not Black-Eyed Blonde. We had nursed this film, as Alan said, through sort of various parents who were looking to get involved. We found out that it is an acquired taste, which we went to various financiers and found the guys at Storyboard, pitched them this, they read it. I mean, I don't think they'd even finished it before they said, yeah, this is something we'd love to do, can we get involved? And it's been sort of a happy...
I should also add, just from the very beginning, when I read the book first, I emailed Liam and said, Banville's written this book, which I think is kind of brilliant. Would you be interested in having a look? And Liam wrote back, I've always wanted to play Philip Marlowe, which was very encouraging note. And so Liam's support for the project has been unwavering.
And as Gary mentioned, it was when we were introduced to the project, the genre of film noir happens to be my favorite, and you know, going back to the classics, Big Sleep and Double Indemnity, and just being familiar with Raymond Chandler's work, and then to hear that Liam would be playing Marlowe and it's directed by Neil Jordan, it was just a no-brainer, and we're thrilled to be involved.
Ok, vamos con una pregunta aquí.
Okay, another question here. Hi, my question is for Liam. Liam, I'm sorry to start off this way, but Marlowe, it seems to me a mixture between Liam Neeson, which is a bit more dramatic, as we can see in many films, and more action type. Perhaps there's action, well, there are action scenes. In the future, we're going to see Liam Neeson in more action roles, or perhaps we're going to see him going back to his roots like the 1990s, like Oscar Schindler and so on and so forth. And now another quick question. This year you've repeated a role that you'd been 23 years without doing physically. Look, it's Qui-Gon Jinn, and I would like to know whether that was a farewell to the role, or are you open to going back to playing that role? Thank you very much. I hope you got all that.
I didn't just quite get the final bit.
It was about the character of Star Wars, yeah?
The character of Star Wars, was that a farewell? Yeah, I think he pronounced Cake-Wa-Chi. I don't know what the name of the Qui-Gon Jinn, that's it, good.
Gin and tonic. as Ewan McGregor used to call me. Ewan did a 6-part series called Obi-Wan, and they asked me that would I appear in the final episode, and I said I did think about it, because I'm a bit of a snob, I have to say, when it comes to TV. I say that, you know, a bit embarrassed to say that, but it's true. Anyway, then I thought, well, I don't want anyone else to be playing this part. And I've literally 3 lines to say at the end of it. And it was lovely to be with Ewan, who's a friend. And we had a lot of catching up to do. And, you know, it was a big green screen in a quarry in Los Angeles. And it was Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan on a camel, a real camel. And me. And the pair of us, we rehearsed it before we shot it, but the pair of us just started crying. And it was kind of lovely, you know, because that Star Wars that we did, The Phantom Menace, we actually shot it over 25 years ago. It came out in 1999, when CGI, computer graphic imaging, was in its infancy. That's why it took so long for it to come out. And but it was lovely to do. It was great to do it, you know. 3 lines. And to pay a certain homage to George Lucas, because I think that world he created was extraordinary, you know. And it's a world that's every culture of every country in the world has a Star Wars mythological theme to the story of those nations. And George Lucas was very, very clever in jumping onto that many years ago.
Vale, vamos con una pregunta.
Okay, another question.
Hello. First of all, I'm here. First of all, congratulations for everyone to the movie. It is great. It's very nice to remember the black films always. My question is for Liam. Are you shooting right now a new movie? Because the mustache, I mean, yeah. Maybe are you shooting a new movie, and this is for the new.
It's a film called Thug, Thug, and I play a thug. And it's being directed by a Norwegian director called Hans Peter Moland, that I did a film called Cold Pursuit a few years ago. And we're going to shoot it in Boston, and I think we start in about 3 weeks' time.
Hola, buenos días.
Hi, good morning. I'd like to ask Liam Neeson, please, if the character, Philip Marlowe's character, whether Philip Marlowe is a dream character to portray?
Yes, because, you know, there's been some extraordinary actors who've played it, as we know. Humphrey Bogart, Elliot Gould, who I thought was actually wonderful, and a Robert Altman adaptation of it with, I don't know if you've seen the film, there's an extraordinary performance in it by Sterling Hayden. And I saw it quite recently too. And Robert Mitchum, of course, played it in the early 70s. And he was, and I'm ashamed to say I am an avid reader. I had never read Raymond Chandler until Alan had sent me John's book, and I just devoured with my best friend Kindle all of Raymond Chandler's Marlowe books. I thought they were extraordinary. I just finished one and then immediately started reading another one. So, but I was never intimidated by it. You know, I'd worked with Neil 4 times, and I wasn't intimidated by the myth of the character. Do you know what I mean? Even though these wonderful actors had played it before, that didn't intimidate me. I knew Neil would give it a certain quirky twist, and that he would cast it superbly, which I think he has done. And it was great to be with Jessica Lange again after 27, 28 years. We did this film, Rob Roy, together. DIANE and I had played together in a film we shot in Berlin 12 years ago. Danny Houston, whom I had worked with, and Alan Cumming. He got together a wonderful cast. Really, really wonderful. That was a bit intimidating, I have to say.
Hola, buenas.
Hi, my question is for Diane. I'd like to ask you, What made you jump on board in this project? What connected you with your character that you portray in the film?
The pursuit to kill lovers. No, I love that genre film for sure. We don't get to play those kind of characters very often anymore, or those kind of films are not being made that often anymore. The chance to work with Neil, I remember us jumping on a Zoom, which he utterly despises. And he was so quirky and charming. I knew he was going to make something, classic, but with a twist. And his ideas for my character felt very on the spot, and I got excited. And Liam, as he mentioned, we'd done a movie before, and I just remember having the best time in Berlin. It felt like this was definitely the one for me to be part of. And we shot in Barcelona, which was pretty awesome.
It was, yeah. I used to live in Laurel Canyon, and there were some scenes we shot. Whose house was it, Neil? Which character's house was it?
It was your house. Your house. Your character. Marlowe's house it was, yeah.
It was Marlowe's house.
Up in La Floresta in Barcelona, yeah.
And it was a replica for Laurel Canyon, for where I used to live. And it was like quite amazing,
Sí, hola.
Hi. Hi, I'd like to ask Neil Jordan a bit about the ambience, the atmosphere. Had you studied that type of lighting specifically, for example, to make a film of a noir genre, to give an ambience, an atmosphere to that period? And what attracts you of this genre of film?
It's not so much the genre, it's more the entire landscape of the movie. Do you understand what I mean? I mean, they're about mysteries, aren't they? And I just thought if I could make a film about a character, Marlowe, who's hired by a beautiful woman to find her lover, and the thing that he goes through all sorts of complications of plot, but what he doesn't realize is she wants him to find her lover so she can kill him. I just thought, well, I haven't seen that before. Do you understand what I mean? And I mean, the term noir is a very difficult one because the movie's shot in color, for one thing, and it's shot in beautiful color by Xavi Jimenez, a great cinematographer. And it was a great journey for me to go through this story with somebody as brilliant as Xavi, I don't understand why more people don't know about him, but anyway, he's great. But the reason we shot him, we made up our version of Los Angeles in that period, yeah. Because if you go to Los Angeles, there's nothing of that period left, The beautiful thing about LA is they just destroy the past the minute it happens, So we had to kind of invent an imaginary city, really, and that to me was the attraction and the challenge of the film, rather than trying to approximate to any noirish aesthetic. Do you understand what I mean? Thank you.
One of the great things about showing the film here is that it's a Spanish film, albeit in the English language and albeit set in Los Angeles. And so to get to present it in its home country is a real privilege. And so, everything about the production was Spanish.
Catalan.
Catalan. And yeah, indeed. And so, and I think hopefully we're going to see some of the people from the production today and this evening at the screening. It was great.
Hello, this is Alex Bizzotto from Players Magazine Italy. My question is for the director and the producers, if they want to add anything. I was also impressed by the lights and this noir atmosphere. So I'd like to know if you had any references or any movies, any noir movies that in a way inspired you. And of course, the work with the cinematographer on this beautiful light, with the director of photography. Thank you.
I mean, to make a film like this work, you have to kind of reinvent the image, I think, and you have to reinvent the idea of a noir movie. Do you understand what I mean? And when I was speaking with the designer, John Beard, who did an extraordinary job, and with Xavi Jimenez, the cinematographer, the reference I chose for them was Blade Runner, and that sounds weird, I know. It's a Ridley Scott movie set in the future. You know, this is in Los Angeles of the future. This is my movie set in Los Angeles of the past. But I felt in a strange way we were building kind of a science fiction landscape of this movie. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it made sense to me. And I think because Ridley did something with the chiaroscuro and the shadows and the brilliance of color and the muted color and stuff like that with Blade Runner, I think it was a good reference for the cinematographer and the designer and for the entire visual complexity of the movie, you know.
And I think Harrison Ford did play a version of Marlowe.
He played a version of Marlowe in that movie, actually. You're absolutely right, yeah. We didn't even discuss that, Liam, did we?
No.
Well,
Here.
Hola.
Hi, I want to ask Neil Jordan, your collaboration with Mr. NEESON. This is the fourth film that you've shot together, if I'm not mistaken. I'd like to ask Neil Jordan about how have you seen 88, 96, 2004 and 22? Seen big changes in Mr. NEESON or not?
Yeah. No, I mean, this is the first time I met Liam. The first time I saw Liam actually was on stage in Dublin, and he played in a play by Brian Friel called Translations. And I've never forgotten this line that he had where he says to a British officer, "Tell him his tent's on fire." Do you remember that? Yeah. And at the time I had written a movie called Michael Collins, yeah? And you hadn't done films at that time, had you? No, I don't think so. And I said, if I ever get to make this movie, I'd like you to play it. And as circumstances happened, we ended up doing it together, you know. But no, I mean, Liam has always been an extraordinary actor, extraordinary presence, and I think to explore the character Marlowe with somebody that I was so familiar with, and I had a relationship with, and somebody who had that iconic kind of status and that iconic aura, can I put it that way, was for me thrilling to do. Did that answer your question? No, it did.
A question for Neil Jordan. I've read that the film is inspired very far away. Joseph Kennedy's character, that seems, who bought RKO, if I'm not mistaken, for affairs that have nothing to do with the economy. I'm not too sure whether there's some of that in the script or not.
Okay. The script that I was sent by Alan originally did not have that element to it. And I wanted something that was, you know, tangled, complex, like a tangled wood that the character was entering into. And I suggested to Bill Monaghan, the writer, that we introduce, we give the character some connection with the world of motion pictures at the time. And I thought of the character Joe Kennedy, who bought RKO Pictures, and he was having an affair with Gloria Swanson. Oh, yeah. Am I correct? Yeah. And I asked Bill to introduce those elements into the story. And he did some of that. And then when I came over to take the script over myself, I made much more of those, of the motion picture complexity and the aspect of the whole film. You know, because I'd never seen a noir movie that actually deals with the movie landscape, you know, or with movie environments. And I thought it would be interesting to explore that area of things. Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Liam. What is the role you most wanted to play and you haven't able to yet? Maybe the Spielberg's Lincoln. I always want to know what happens in that case, because you are the principal actor for this role.
Oh, for Abraham Lincoln. it's kind of a long story, and I did spend about 4.5 years doing research on Lincoln. I still am, actually. And but when my wife passed away in March, we did a read-through in New York of the script by Tony Kushner, who's an extraordinary writer. But Tony's version of the script was, a version of the Lincoln story was the 8 months it took for Lincoln to pass through the emancipation of the black people. And I thought, no, the Americans, the rest of the world don't know about Abraham Lincoln, his whole story. I wanted a more biographical thing. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I remember we were in this room with these wonderful actors, Sally Field and New York actors, for this read-through, you know. And I just remember turning the pages, oh, here's me now, I have to speak as Abraham Lincoln. And I thought I was past my sell-by date. And after the read-through, you know, you hang around, you talk to your mates and other actors and stuff, and I went back home and I thought, I'm past my sell-by date, I'm not right for this. And I was getting over my wife's death. And I called Stephen up and I said, Stephen, it's not for me anymore. And you should call my pal, Daniel Day, and I'm sure maybe he called Daniel originally. But I thought Daniel was extraordinary, and I thought it was a wonderful film, but I did want to see the whole story of Lincoln, because it is an extraordinary story. The man's journey from a dirt poor farm, you know, losing his mother at the age of 9, all the way through to 625,000 Americans, many of them Irish, by the way, that he bore that weight on his shoulders in his vision of what a democracy could be. And he still startles me, and I still read books. There's over 2,000 books written on Abraham Lincoln. Remarkable, yeah. But Daniel was superb, I thought. Superb.
Vale, y tenemos tiempo para una última pregunta.
Time for one final question. Hi, I'd like to ask about an actress who's in the film, it's not here, Jessica Lange. And the director and the producers, I'd like to ask you why and how did you think in Jessica for this character she portrayed? And Liam, you mentioned it a bit. What was it meeting up again after so many years with Jessica and working with her?
You want to go first?
You go.
Okay. I had been talking to Jessica about another movie, actually. She wanted me to direct her as... She had a script that she loved where she plays the older Marlene Dietrich. And it didn't happen for various reasons. And I've been talking, having long conversations with her, and I thought I would love to work with this woman. I really would, you know. And I knew her husband, Sam, or ex-husband, Sam Shepard, slightly. You know, he was an extraordinary figure and a wonderful rogue. And I just wanted to work with Jessica desperately. And when this entire thing was put into motion, I sent her the script and asked her, would she be interested in playing this character? And the thought of Jessica Lange playing a retired screen goddess, actually, who had taken everything from Hollywood that it could give her and was now this kind of rather glamorous billionaire, evil kind of blonde, was just, to me, great. And luckily she agreed to play it. I actually wasn't aware that I didn't remember that Liam had played with Jessica and Rob Roy, and then I went, of course, yeah, it'd be great. That's how that happened from my point of view.
Vale, pues me temo que tenemos que dejarlo aquí.
Sorry, we have to finish here. Big round of applause for the producer, director, and the actors of the film.